Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to this week's energy update. We're just getting started here. I will let a couple more people hop on before I dive into everything. But I hope that everybody has had a good week thus far. It does not feel like 7 o'clock. I don't even know what time it is right now. I mean, I know it's 7, but it doesn't feel like 7. What the heck? It is really light outside still, which is great, but weird. So while we are waiting on other people to hop on here, any commentary about your week, about the current state of the world, anything like that? Oh my God, my cat. I have 2 cats at home. As you guys know, I've got 2 store kitties. I've got 2 cats at home, and one is just insisting that she come into this room that I'm in via the window, which doesn't open. She's trying to come in through my sunroom. So she's goofball. I was going to pull up the Schumann resonance that has been kicking off nutty. Oh God, we finally got a break. Let me see if I can show this to you. Schumann resonance there. We were getting blasted all day yesterday. When you look at, there we go. When we look at like the white, the red, the yellow, all of that, that is an amplitude increase. And whereas the Earth's normal frequency is like 7.83 hertz, 9, 10. That was upwards of 30 something. 30. It's now showing 25 as the peak, but it was 30 something yesterday. And of course, there were a lot of storms that came through across the US yesterday. And I think there was a pretty big earthquake in Taiwan too. So the Schumann resonance can be affected by kind of Earth's little bubble of electromagnetic activity, storms, lightning, of course, then earthquakes can be triggered, or it's just like what affects what first, the chicken or the egg. But there are also other things that can affect the Schumann resonance outside of the planet, like solar flares, solar storms, and waves, that like reach us over time and space and enter our atmosphere. Yesterday was kind of intense weather-wise and energy-wise as well. I got super, super tired by the time my day was kind of winding down later on, kind of in the afternoon, early evening, just like feeling really drained. So when the Schumann resonance increases, we can have certain emotional or mental or physical symptoms of that. And people who do energy work, kind of like light workers, ascension, kind of minded folks, also say that when we get these increases in energy, it provides for us almost like a detoxification of our energy field. It can kind of blast out lower vibrational energies and upgrade our DNA, all kinds of things. But when the human body, whether physically or energetically, is detoxing, it can, as those things are rising up, it can cause those momentary or even day long, type symptoms of releasing. It's like those lower vibrational energies have been brought to the surface and we're kind of experiencing them or feeling them. So, anyway, hope you survived yesterday, and that the storms and all of that we had kind of across the country, that I believe, I don't think they're still continuing. I'm not really sure. I didn't check the weather today. But I know that there was some tornado stuff, not in our area in East Tennessee, but kind of as the storm was coming through heading towards us. So anywho, I'm not a meteorologist. So what I wanted to talk about during this week's energy update was to kind of take a deeper dive into the solar eclipse that we have coming up on Monday. And the solar eclipse is also the new moon. We have solar eclipses on a new moon, and we have lunar eclipses on a full moon. And I have my handy witch's calendar here. The new moon is exact at 2:21 p.m. And this calendar also says solar eclipse 2:21 p.m. Um, now let me see if I have my notes because I believe I have my notes. Let me see if it has time. No, I did not write down the time, but there's a lot of talk about the solar eclipse coming up. And of course, depending on where you are in the country, if you're in the US, there will be different times that the eclipse will be viewable because it will be kind of making this arc, all across the country. So, Google or time and date or NASA or whatever you want to check to see the exact time for you to kind of experience the eclipse where you're at. Now, this is a total solar eclipse. Sometimes there are solar eclipses where the moon and the sun don't completely align up, where the moon completely obscures the sun, but this is a total solar eclipse. Now, in East Tennessee, like where I'm located, it will not be visible as a total solar eclipse because I am not directly in the path of the eclipse. But there will be, um, it will be almost eclipsed, but why we won't get like the total like nighttime kind of hush and the cool little snake wavy things that occur on the ground if you're in the path of totality. But energetically, though, it is felt, acknowledged, valid for anyone on the planet, honestly. So, we did talk about this last week a bit, and probably the week before. This is a pretty big solar eclipse. And um, with Western astrology calculations, the eclipse is in Aries. Vedic astrology is still calculating the eclipse being in Pisces. So Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, and it is kind of like wrapping up, kind of indicating an ending. And then Aries is the first sign in the zodiac, and so it's a beginning, right? So whether you're kind of feeling more aligned with the Western or tropical astrology calculations or the Vedic sidereal calculations, um, these are like two different systems of calculating. God, my eyes are doing something weird. It just seemed like my eyes were like moving separate from my head. I don't know what the heck. Anyway, um, but regardless of what system you use or that you feel like you're more in alignment with, both systems are really in play. You could see them as like two different blueprints or two different sets of schematics in which we're kind of viewing the energies of the cosmos and then how those energies affect us. So, sidereal or Vedic calculations are the exact literal placements of the planets in the constellations of the zodiac. um, Tropical and or Western is a few degrees off. Um, but most people in the US use Western astrology. But as you've heard me say a million times, I like using both because I think that it's that both systems are valid, and we know that regardless of, Pisces, if we're looking at Pisces energy or we're looking at Aries energy, we have an ending and then we have a beginning, right? And eclipses, because there is like a duality, there is a light and a shadow, there is a moving more swiftly instead of like a whole, you know, um, a whole day, taking like 24 hours and then having, daytime and nighttime spread across several hours. An eclipse for a little bit, for this, few hours, this moment in time, is kind of like an accelerated version of a whole day, right? For the solar eclipse. And so there is a um kind of delving into the shadow, anything that is maybe hidden or obscured or underneath the surface. And then there is a, bringing light back to that situation, back to those energies within, the path of the eclipse. And so the energy can be very intense because it is kind of like accomplishing a lot of energetic work in a really a short amount of time. And of course, depending on your own astrology chart, your birth chart, and where these signs are, whether you're a Pisces sun or you're an Aries sun, or you have strong placements and, in different planets or in different houses in your chart, you may feel this eclipse a little more impactfully than others. And I was listening to a Vedic astrologer the other day. Her name is Joni Patri, and she was saying that in 2005, 2006 was the time where we had the exact same astrological placements as we're going to be experiencing in this solar eclipse. And her advice was to think back, to recall what you were doing in 2005, leading into 2006. And I was having a hard time remembering. I mean, I was an adult. I was an adult then, living my life. But I'm really gonna have to sit down and just kind of like go backwards and really think about not only just what I was doing, but what I was going through at that time in my life. I'm pretty sure I had gotten divorced, and I don't know where that was, exactly what year. You would think I would remember that, um, but it was a big transitional time for me, from having been married for 7 going on 8 years, and then getting divorced, and then kind of like starting that next part of my life. So, yeah, so maybe after the energy update, kind of go back. I know some people are just like fantastic with dates and different time frames, but think back of where you were in your life, what was going on, what shifts or changes did you go through in 2005 and 2006. So, homework. And going back to light and shadow and this eclipse kind of powerhouse energy of very swiftly um, addressing the potential of like big shifts in your own personal life, but then also globally. Um, we are seeing, it seems like every day, much more so than it used to be, but we're seeing like every day and then several times a day, there are kind of explosive things coming out in the news, or, things that are going on around the world. It's not like every few days or every week or once a month that there's kind of this thing that happens, like a big thing. It's like there are several things just it's almost like, have you ever watched, like, an old-timey movie if there's somebody's, like, on a horse and buggy or, like, a chariot and, like, the wheels are going really fast and then like, a spoke in the wheel breaks, and then it's, like, this quick, like, everything just goes, and just, like, falls apart and, like, flies everywhere. To me, that's what the energy feels like. And, I'm not saying that I'm feeling that everything is breaking apart to absolute catastrophe per se, but it feels like all of these spokes in the wheel or the cogs in the gear are starting to show the wear and tear and are starting to be glaringly obvious that they're outgrown and that they're not working, or why is that even in there in the first place, kind of thing. And it's the structure, the foundation, the house of lies. What is that from? Almost Famous. I think is that from Almost Famous? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's from Almost Famous. She says, "This is a house of lies." Tell me if that's the movie or if I'm thinking of something else. Um, but yeah, it is. That was 100%. Is Zoe Deschanel or whatever her name is, and she's yelling that at her mother. This is a house of lies. um, so anyway, that's kind of what I feel is being exposed and being revealed, and it's kind of like in the metaphorical wheel with all the spokes. All of the spokes kind of hold the other one in place, and so if one goes, the other ones are gonna go too, and it's kind of like the faster that this energy kind of picks up with this change, stuff is going to break apart. Now, um, in certain company, or around, certain people, I definitely could talk more in depth, or maybe with a certain tone about the state of the world. But I'm not trying to stay completely neutral, but I'm also trying to be diplomatic, I guess, and how I kind of, express how things, right? And I'm not saying that I'm like 100% right, or it's my way or the highway or anything like that, but I mean, I definitely do not only have opinions and feelings about things, but also intuitively, I feel a lot of change is coming, right? So, when we do these lives, and there are people watching and participating, I do want this to also be an open forum for you to comment, ask questions, and share as well. And I know sometimes I kind of get like on a rant, and then I'm like, ooh, I've got I've got comments, and I need to address that, or something. But feel free to comment, ask questions as we go along. All right. And then I guess, if someone's watching this when it's already recorded, someone could leave a comment. I'm kind of bad about checking comments after the fact, but I'll try to do better. Um, but I will say that I feel like this eclipse, and really kind of just being in the first, I guess it would be like the first, almost like the first quarter of the year, in a way, the calendar year. It feels like this is really kind of uh, a pivotal point that is really kicking off that energy, that motion. And I kind of suspect that in the fall will be and like another big time of e- energies being volatile, right? So not that it's just like easy breezy through the summer, but it was kind of like shift, ride that out, little tiny peaks and waves, and then something else in the fall. Because as we've talked about, and I guess depending on Vedic or Western, but Vedic eclipse axes is Virgo and Pisces, and then with Western astrology, it's Aries and Libra. And so, regardless, if you kind of think of those like eclipse, the north and south like axis in which the eclipses are happening, then it's now, and then in like 6 months from now too, right? So, right. So, Recycle Couture is saying, could it have to do with the election outcome? Well, that is in the fall, right? The feeling intuitively that I have is that it's before the election, as far as, I mean, not that that isn't going to be a big deal, But I feel like it's before, like probably October is what I feel, as that there's something pretty big before the election even actually happens. So, you know, like I said, I was kind of hinting at saying that I kind of try to maintain a, a diplomatic, more neutral conversational tone when it comes to like doing these lives. And I definitely don't want to be focusing on just the negatives, right? At all, or like fear mongering, or anything like that. But the thing about change, or things breaking down, or things blowing up, or um any of that destructive type energy, is that is the end, although sometimes a catastrophic or really upsetting or scary end to an energy, but then that always ushers in a new energy, right? So when you have a large forest fire, or a volcano, or something in nature that destroys plants, forests, animals, and then of course, like humans, if they inhabit that area. When something like that happens, there might be a loss of life. There might be, destruction of things, but then there's always this new growth that comes out of that. I mean, a volcano might even create a whole new part of the island, if it's a volcanic eruption, that flows into the ocean. So there is always rebirth, right? And but it's just getting through it's getting through that time of loss and of destruction that can be so challenging. And so I feel that the delicate balance that we're being called to hold, for ourselves, for our families, for our community, is to be aware, and is to be conscious of really kind of what's going on, and whether it's going on in the world or in our community, but really especially like in our little microcosm of like us, as individuals, or within our group of our family or our friends, kind of that close community, is to really be kind of aware of what energies are flowing out, and what energies are kind of waiting then to come in with that new start, and to help us to prepare for any um situation that might be an emergency situation, or that you could lose your job, or um society breaks down, whatever. I feel like I'm like dancing all around it. Um, then, you do things like grow. And I think we talked about this last week, or maybe it was the week before, but it's like you grow some food, you preserve food, you freeze stuff, you take care of yourself in the potential lean time until the new energy starts in, right? Because there's a when the energy is super new, it's not like immediately it's like, oh, we've just moved to this new era and everything is like technologically advanced and magical and perfect. I mean, it could be that, but more than likely there's a rebuilding um in some way or another. And it could just be, it could be almost more like not really metaphor, but just not even in the tangible, like our economy or how our money works. It could be something more, you know, like infrastructure, or your house or your town, it could be that. And it's like, we're here in the US. I'm in the US, right? And our country is not at this moment like war torn, but there are many places in the world right now where there is some serious stuff going on, right? And so, from my perspective, I'm just like, wow, I've got a roof over my head, and I've got my things and my animals, and I've got food, and yeah, everything's more expensive, but I'm safe, I'm surviving. and like more than surviving, right? My life, I'm so grateful for how my life is. But there are many other parts in the world where people don't have that at all, right? And so um I don't mean to be like callous or just like insensitive to all the other conflicts and that are going on, and like what real people, humans and babies and children and all of that are going through. I just know that we here right now are not experiencing that. um and most of us don't really know what that we've maybe never experienced that. I mean, we haven't here really much. I mean, I know there have been protests, there have been riots and things like that, and there's natural disasters. I get that, but we haven't experienced being in a war torn, like in a war zone, in our lifetime as Americans. So uh there's the potential for that. It's freaking weird and scary to think about. But you know, time will tell to see how all the energy rises up and how it settles itself out. But in the meantime, um, do things that help your mental health, that help your physical health, to where your body is um, strong and your body is able to stay healthy, and like boosting your immune system, right? And reducing stress is like one of the biggest things that you can do to help with your vitality for sure. Because stress is, I mean, it just like brings everything tumbling down. But of course, it's like, well, how can I not be stressed when it's like everything costs more, and our gas prices are probably going to go up and blah 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 blah, all the things. So yeah, it's stressful. We can actually survive and thrive in a certain kind of level of stress. It kind of like, we kind of keep going. It's just that we can't do that forever. We do need to rest. We do need to replenish our stores in our body, or and rest our mind and rest our body as well. So a little bit of stress, healthy stress, might keep you motivated, but it's just not something that you can go on, and stay healthy forever running on that. So, of course, doing things that help reduce, eliminate stress in your life, whether it's going on a walk or it's trying to eat healthier, drink more water, or to get more sleep, or meditation, yoga, all of those things, right? But like, I know for me, like whenever I'm outside working in my yard, working in the garden, and I have a small, like little garden. I mean, I live in the city limits. I garden mainly in my front yard, a little bit in the backyard. I mean, I have container gardens. I have a little, plot in the ground as well, but it's not like I have a huge farm or anything right now. But regardless, when I'm outside and my hands are literally in the dirt and I'm weeding or I'm planting or watering or whatever I'm doing, it is so restorative to be in the earth, to be in the dirt, and to be doing work, physical work. I mean, I'm tired afterwards, right? Maybe sweaty. I always sleep really well, after that. So that's the kind of activity too, where you're actually doing something that is going to benefit you and your family down the road by maybe growing, even some tomatoes or something, or you could grow more food than that. But it is in the moment, it is keeping you, anchored and grounded in the earth energy. And it's literally grounding your electromagnetic field into the earth. And there's all these beneficial, like little, you know, microorganisms and things that, our body is populated with, all kinds of like flora and fauna. And it helps like balance everything out. I mean, soil, and we don't eat it because of other stuff that could be in the soil, but it's very, very good for you to be in the dirt, right? So, activity like that, that is not, it's not only taking care of the meditation and the physical exertion, a little bit of exercise, but energetically it's very soothing as well. And then it's going to benefit you in the long run too, right? So that's a great thing to do. It could be walking your dog. Hello there. Hey. Occult examiner. I think that's Buffy. Hi. So, it could be walking your dog. If you have animals, it could be taking care of your animals. I don't know if any of you all have chickens or, any kind of livestock or anything like that, but that's another one of those things where, I mean, I have dogs and I have cats. I have like a fish. I mean, and these are, kind of almost like glamour pets because I mean, like my dogs, would like let me know if somebody's coming to my house. It shouldn't be here, or um, they may or may not protect me, or they just may lick someone to death. I'm not sure, but sometimes we have pets that are just there for companionship, which is very valuable, right? We know how good we feel when we're even like, just hanging out with our animals, or, they're loving on us, we're loving them, whatever. But, another way to kind of think a little more kind of far reaching is, considering getting animals that actually provide eggs, or bees that provide honey, something like that. So, you know, what your setup is, and kind of what you have time for and the resources for. But it feels like it's a smart move for us, as humans in general, is to kind of set ourselves up to have a way, and even just some ways, to provide for ourselves, like to be able to eat and to eat healthy food, right? And it could be that maybe you don't have space for chickens, but you do have a sunny spot to grow some vegetables and some herbs. But maybe your neighbor has chickens, and you all trade, right? Bartering is a fantastic arrangement, and it is the true form of energy exchange. It is saying, I have something that has value, you have something that has value, and we agree that we're going to trade, right? And there's no, I am, buying for these paper dollars your eggs. I mean, you can do that. That is an energy exchange as well. But dollars are really only worth so much now with inflation. And so I think that something that is lovingly, organically grown by you, and then traded with someone else that has also put in, their hard work and energy in something, is a really beautiful exchange. Um, and Occult examiner, she says that temperance is a good card to meditate with for balance, for sure. And the temperance card is, also one of patience, right? And the temperance card is, when we're in a state of balance, we know when to pause and we know when to rest, but then we also know when we need to step into the energy of doing, right? And it is finding the balance of that ebb and flow, to be in harmony, with in your life, or in the bigger picture as well. And um, I think one concept, and Occult Examiner kind of hits on this, but she's talking about collaboration on community projects are great too. And of course, doing that good work, putting your time and effort into something that is more of a collaborative venture. It could be, cleaning up your neighborhood after a storm, or it could be putting in flower beds, or a community garden, or a community that is working towards a common cause, right? But just think for a moment, or for a minute here, while I'm kind of blathering on about your your connection to community. And, that word can really have several different meanings. I mean, it means the same thing, but whether you think community like where you live, like the part of the state or the part of the county that you live in, your neighborhood. When you think of community, is it people that are like-minded individuals, that are all kind of share the same beliefs or values? Is it more like your family and your extended family? Or is it like, community as in like-minded individuals, but you kind of really have each other's backs? You're friends and they're like family, but you're not related. So there are many ways to really consider what community is. And I feel that it's well, the word that comes through is imperative. I think it's really important, um, sooner than later, to prioritize understanding what your community is, and what community means to you. And uh, having real conversations with those people, and maybe coming up with um, either something that you know, are going to collaborate on or to work on together. It could be like, "Hey, I'm gonna build a chicken coop. I could need some help." And then when we do that, then who else has a project that would, go so much faster and more efficiently if there were many hands on deck? Um, but I also feel like it's networking, but not like business networking. It's saying if someone is in need, then the community steps in together to help that person. And it's not always like there's that one person who's always asking for something, right? It's just that in that time of need or in that season of their life, they might need more help or support. But then either previously, they were able to give and contribute, or maybe even though they are in need, they do have something of value to contribute to the group or to the whole or to the family or whatever it is. You always have something of value. You always have something to offer. It might not be cash. It might not be gas in the car. It might not be groceries. It might not be, time, but it is. I have more of this than I need, and I can gift that, send that on. And, sometimes it's like, I don't need an exchange, catch me later when I do need something, right? Um, but anyway, I feel like I'm kind of like getting off track a little bit. But now is the time to have those conversations with people that you are in alignment with. So that in times, if things are harder, I'll just say it that way, then you kind of know that other people have your back, that you can reach out to connect with other people, but then you are also going to be there, to help support, strategize, connect with, other people as well. And it doesn't have to be a huge group of people. It's just that, your values, your talents, your interests, your um, you know, eh, just who you are is in alignment enough with the other people of that community, of that family, of that group, to where you'll be able to get more accomplished together than you would independently. And sometimes that's, for me, because I'm a very independent person. Um, I am used to doing things myself. It is really challenging sometimes for someone like me who, to say, I can't do this on my own. Or if I had help or just more people contributing or doing the work or coming up with the ideas or whatever it is, that it could be not only some weight off of my shoulders, but there could be something really phenomenal that could be accomplished that maybe I'm going to barely be able to get done, or I couldn't accomplish it on my own. So I'm not saying that I don't enjoy community, and that I don't want to work with others. I do. And I think that that's really important. But I know for those of us that are independent, right, or are also used to kind of being the go to person, that it may be hard to even just like understand how that works. But now is the time to have those conversations, and now is the time to kind of get those networks built up and established. And maybe not just one, maybe it's like people that you're like, hey, like when the garden comes in, I'm gonna have extra stuff, I'll be happy to bring you extra stuff. You want to come and like pick all the beans you want because we got all the wheat needed or whatever, like do that, right? Or it could be other groups that have other interests or things to offer, and then you have things to offer or whatever. So anyway, um after we kind of get through, or we might have this kind of like increase of intense energy this spring. The summer is, like I said, I don't feel like it's going to be just skating through, but it's the time to make sure that you're getting all that stuff done and before the fall comes. Because I think the fall does have the likelihood to be more volatile. Um, you know, definite kind of just a sense of like being unsure of exactly how all the pieces are going to fall. And then of course then we go into winter, right? I mean, we are seasonal beings. We are so affected by the length of the day, how much sunlight we have, by the temperature, by all of that. And so, spring is the time for getting those projects planned, started, and in motion. And then we start, we maintain that through the summer. And then towards the end of the summer, we start to see the harvest coming in. We do celebrate that, appreciate that, but then we prepare for winter to kind of live off the fruits of our labor to get us through the winter, right? And so if you think of that in a very literal sense, there's definitely like take that literally, but then there's also the very figurative or more metaphoric way of looking at that energy as well. So um so anyway, uh I, oh, let's just hit on Mercury retrograde really quick too. I know we've talked about this in energy updates in the past. I mean, like the last couple weeks, but we are in Mercury retrograde right now, and it's basically going to be retrograde the entire month. It's through the 25th. Let me see. Yeah, 8:54 a.m. is when Mercury goes direct. And so and we're still in the shadow period of the retrograde season, or energy, past then for another 2 weeks. But um, it was so funny on April 1st, which is when Mercury went retrograde. It was like a day of, it was a kickoff. It was like my web hosting, credit card processing, like all of that was totally glitchy in the morning. And then Instagram was being wonky. So I was trying to post stuff about stuff coming up the week for the community space, and my posts weren't working right. And then our yoga instructor called me and she was like, hey, the back door isn't working. We have like a Wi-Fi keypad, and it was offline, and so I had to go in, and the batteries that I just replaced like a month ago were like dead, and I was like, oh my god, freaking Mercury retrograde. It was like out of the gate, it was like all of these technical difficulties, right? And it's like not the end of the world. It was a, the issues got resolved. It was kind of a minor inconvenience, but it was just like bam, 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 all in that day, right? So if it's the kind of thing that like, you're in a time crunch, you're running short on time, or you've got a lot of things to do having to do with the internet or with technology or whatever, and then you've got not just one thing or maybe one big thing or several other things, it does kind of build up, right? As far as being inconvenient or being stressful. um, so um, it is it is going to be trying with how we kind of get through this Mercury retrograde, because I feel like it kind of came in pretty strong. Um, Occult Examiner says a lot of folks have been hacked. I don't know if like social media stuff, maybe like if their accounts have been hacked, or if it's like data breaches or what. I'm sure it's kind of like all of the above. But oh, bank accounts, fun. Oh gosh. But it's the kind of thing where all of our almost all of our communication and our banking is now digital, right? It's over the internet, it's over satellites, and dollars are numbers that are put into a computer instead of piles of gold, right? And then of course we have passwords, we have apps, we have how the world works with commerce and communication is, it's not like physically like writing a letter and sending it via the Pony Express anymore, right? Yeah, it's quick. It's quick and it's convenient when it works. But then when it doesn't work, it's kind of like when I was talking about at the very beginning of this energy update, it's like that wheel with all the spokes and one spoke goes and then it kind of creates this shitstorm with all the other things that are networked and connected and stuff, right? So during Mercury retrograde, if you can, and it's really good to try to kind of do a little bit of like a preventative stuff before it happens, but of course we're just a few days in. So anything that, with technology, communication, that you need to kind of do a little maintenance on, maybe it's time to like change some of your passwords, or be a little more cautious with things. Like if you get a suspicious like message on Facebook, hello friend, whatever, like don't click on the link, things like that can definitely keep you from falling prey to this energy that is kind of um all garbled and mixed up, but then will also reduce your stress level from all the other things that kind of have the potential of coming at you at this time. So, um always in personal relationships with interactions with people, or acceptance letters or business correspondence or any of those things, contracts, agreements, all of that stuff, it's always recommended that you either have a lot of patience or that you aren't maybe trying to finalize any of that kind of contract paperwork stuff during Mercury retrograde because the energies are not working with you. You are swimming upstream. And it doesn't mean that you can't do any of those things, but just be prepared to maybe set a little more time aside if you can, or to double check that communication got sent. You might have to follow up, things like that. And yes, it might seem like a little more work on the forefront, but it might reduce a little bit of stress overall as well. So, um, oh, I don't know if I talked about this, but this is actually the main thing that was on my brain when I was getting ready to do the live, and I completely didn't remember it until now, or it didn't pop back into my head. Um, but the Vedic astrologer, Jenny Petrie, that I was listening to, she mentioned that. Okay, so before I say this, so eclipses from uh like year to year, they have like opposite um paths. And so we have either, let's just say east to west or west to east, but it's usually like an arc. It's not like straight across the US, like how the US is oriented. But she was saying that there was a lineup with the astrology of this eclipse happening with October of last year, in that eclipse, and that there is an X that goes over Texas. Okay, and we know that there's a lot of stuff going on in Texas right now, and there has been for a while. And with another eclipse that is this year in October, that other line will kind of be another kind of crosshatch on that X over Texas. So there's that. That was I haven't really dug into that, but the state of Texas probably is there's going to be a lot of cosmic energy kind of pushing in the um, volatility department. Okay. But what I was going to talk about that I'm just now getting to is also that, as you all know, we had like I was able to drive 10 minutes from my house in 2017 to view the full totality of the solar eclipse in 2017. Of course, it's a little shifted now, and so I would have to drive farther away. I'm going to stay close to home. I'm not driving anywhere to see the eclipse this year. So, um, the there are other eclipses, right? So that eclipse, I mean, I don't know how you're seeing me and how the camera is oriented, but let's just say like Maine to Texas, okay, kind of like arching down, right? And then sometimes the eclipse will be like up in like the Pacific kind of Northwest or California, and it'll kind of like arch over the other way, and it crosses, it makes an X over the US. And you can, it's cool. You can look at like previous eclipses and like maps and look at this pattern that occurs over and over. But anyway, back in 2017, um, there was a there's an area that is right around the New Madrid Fault, which is like it's a little north of Tennessee, like Memphis, but like the New Madrid Fault is kind of like right there, Mississippi River ish. Okay, there's actually what state is it? There are probably more than one town called like New Madrid or Madrid around the area of the New Madrid Fault. That's kind of in the middle of the U.S. So anyway, so with the previous eclipse path and then this one that's happening, there is an area like, oh my God, camera, to where it's kind of the middle of the X, like right here, to where it's kind of received both of that eclipse energy, you know, like through multiple eclipses, but both. So this same pattern happened back in the 1800s. It was 1806 and then 1811, where the X was over the New Madrid Fault. And this is pretty cool, but kind of we'll see what happens. So after the second eclipse, 1806, and then after the late 1811 eclipse, there were many earthquakes that started on the New Madrid Fault. And there were some super like big ones. And this is kind of the middle of the country, like, you know, past Memphis, Tennessee, right? Like all along there. I'm going, you know, up and down through the middle of the country. And there were some quakes that were strong enough to be felt all the way on the East Coast. Okay. It's a major fault line. And there, I think the number was there were 2,000 documented earthquakes between 1811 and 1812 through this span of time. Okay. And at least one of the earthquakes was strong enough to also temporarily make the Mississippi River run backwards, um, which is pretty amazing, right? Now, you can Wikipedia this, you can research it via other means than Wikipedia as well. But there were fissures of miles long that opened up around that area as well. Now, back in the early 1800s, this was not a densely populated area. There wasn't like really much going on, you know, all along there, not big cities like there are now. And so back then, when these earthquakes happened, it was not as cataclysmic or catastrophic because you know, there weren't as many people that were affected. So I'm not being like like doomsday-ish about this, but I do find it interesting that we do see energetic patterns repeat themselves. And if there were to be um, major eclipses, or I'm sorry, earthquakes, because perhaps this eclipse energy um, along the New Madrid Fault, it would affect a whole lot more people now. Not in a good way, right? So I'm not saying that I'm hoping that that happens, but I'm saying it's always, I mean, it's always sad when there is property damage and loss of life and, emergencies and disasters and all of that. I mean, I don't think anybody sees that as like, yeah, that's awesome, right? Go Mother Nature. But that's kind of like the reality of it because Mother Nature just does stuff. The earth does stuff too regulate itself. And then humans, I mean, I'm a human, you're a human, right? We're all humans. But we definitely have uh built roads and buildings and all the things that help us get from here to there and house us and shelter us and factories that provide food and all this kind of stuff, right? But the earth is just kind of doing what the earth does. And you can't really fault the planet or nature or energy trying to balance that itself when things like that do happen. And then when you think of the more kind of esoteric or kind of energetic way of looking at it is, humans, very few humans are living in concert with the earth, as far as um, you can't tell where we have tread. We're not taking more than we're giving back. All this stuff, right? And so when you look at it kind of energetically, you look at that ticking time bomb of humans are doing all these things that are really upsetting the equilibrium, and nature is going to, and that's what nature does. It just always is always trying to get back to that state of homeostasis, to get back at that state of balance and harmony, right? So, um, it'll be interesting to see how all of that energy plays out, and it just kind of is what it is. But when we look at light and shadow of the eclipse, um, like I was speaking about earlier, there is the duality, but then the balancing of the light and dark that we can focus on, that we can meditate on. So if you are going to do any energy work, any meditation, any journaling, any altars, any whatever around the solar eclipse, or to kind of get yourself energetically aligned or prepared with that for that energy, to work with the energy. It will definitely be those symbols of duality, of yin and yang, of balance, of the coin and then the other side, right? And I think that that will probably be the most beneficial type of focus for you with this eclipse energy. Now, if there is a kind of like a personal situation that you need to have anything happen in a more accelerated manner to kind of like work with the energy that is kind of swiftly moving, it would be an appropriate time for that kind of work. And also, if you need any illumination um, on an issue in a relationship, some clarity, you can also do work um, around the eclipse for that. And honestly, what I would recommend, but of course, you do what feels right to you, what really feels like is going to work best for you. But to have everything at least set up and ready to go and possibly even in motion before the eclipse begins, because it's also a new moon, right? So it is a releasing, letting go before the new moon, and then kind of saying, now what energies have I made room to receive in this next lunation? So yes, you could do energy work as the eclipse is going on, but I would recommend getting everything set ready, and maybe you light your candle before the eclipse starts and then let it continue to do its work, but you're able to just really sit there in stillness, receptivity, watch the eclipse with your eclipse glasses or whatever it is. Because anything that is kind of thrown together or kind of not intentionally planned or put into motion could be a little bit chaotic during the eclipse. Mercury's retrograde. The energy is either Pisces, two fish swimming in opposite directions in the undercurrents of the subconscious, right? In full potentiality, but it's kind of like many, many options, or Aries, which is ruled by Mars, the god of war. So it's a little bit of chaotic energy, which can be worked with, but probably not completely harnessed. So I would just recommend getting everything kind of set up, orderly, simple before the eclipse, and then let the energy just kind of flow however it does. Okay. So it is now 8 o'clock. And does anybody have any other questions or commentary? Um, I am not a geologist, nor am I a meteorologist or an astronomer. So all of this stuff that I've been hitting on has just, of course, been, my own interest in research. With people who are experts or a very various sources as well. I don't just get my information from one place. I think it is important to be discerning and to kind of compare notes, because there's a lot of information out there that could be skewed or have a certain kind of spin on it, for a certain reason or the other. But yeah, do your own research. Um ask I think now is the time to ask questions, because we more and more are realizing that just what we've accepted as true, what we've been told is just how things are. It's just not really accurate in a lot of ways. There are probably more things that are fabricated or twisted or not quite right than there are that are actually truly just truth or accurate. Um, which means we've got a whole lot of stuff to figure out what is actually true, which is kind of cool. That's kind of liberating. Um, but it's also not going to serve anybody well just to kind of hold on to like the crumbling remnants of this old foundation that stuff was built on. That's just really either A, falling apart, B, not right, not built right, right? Or we have totally outgrown as humans, as a society, as a culture, as a planet, blah, blah, blah. So see it as liberation for sure. But it might be wonky for a while. So, all right. So if there are no more comments or questions, I think I will sign off here. We're good? All right, I think we're good. Oh, wait. We live in a world of gaslighting. Yes, we do live in a world of gaslighting. It's intense. I think it's funny with all of these like keywords with psychology, that have kind of come into our awareness over the last several years. Narcissism, gaslighting. I mean, there's like a whole bunch more, right? But it's like caused, I think, so many people to point fingers, so many people to maybe understand maybe the root of issues with like their upbringing or their relationships or whatever. Maybe some people had realizations about themselves. But yeah, really, it's like it's not just going to be in your personal relationships. It's not just going to be how you're raised. It's going to be like ripple out into your community, into your country, into your government, into the world government, right? Like if those things are going on in your personal life, they're surely like much more exploded schematics, big in the whole construct. So when you realize that, you're like, ah, okay. that's the reason why, over and over and over again. So it can be really upsetting and can be really frustrating. But um it is liberating. On the other side of it is truly liberating. So I just uh, I look forward to getting through as unscathed as possible, probably a little battle weary, but then being on the other side and going, well, at least we know what we're dealing with now, right? And we can rebuild, a better, healthier structure because humans just have to have structure. That's just what we do. Anarchy only lasts for so long. And then it's like, okay, well, we're a group and we work together and this is our boss because that's just what humans want to do, right? I guess that's how we keep our chaotic selves organized. So, thank you very much for hanging out with me. I hope you all have a good rest of your week. And I hope you have a great eclipse and new moon day on Monday. And if the internet still works after that, I guess I'll see you on Wednesday next week. All right. Thanks so much, you guys. Have a good night. Bye bye.